Good morning.
Good morning, Pastor.
And I want to report that on March 8th was International Women's Day, and I was very pleased with the way the day was observed by many different organizations. In the past, we had a struggle to encourage persons to recognize the day. However, it has actually picked up some momentum, and women and different organizations organize many activities throughout the island. There are some who had dinners. They had different ways of celebrating and observing International Women's Day. International Women's Day started in 1911. So it's over 100 years this activity has been going on. But it was fully endorsed by the United Nations in 1977. And throughout the world, we recognize women, we promote women for whoever they are, because they are different to men. And there are certain challenges, there are certain achievements that they have enjoyed over the years, and therefore we need to celebrate them. And therefore this date, March 8th, is set aside for women to be celebrated by themselves, and we also want men to celebrate them too. This year, the Department of Gender Affairs actually had, on the day itself, we had a series of activities, but on the day itself, we had a live activity at the Constitution Park. And there we had some dignitaries, we had some artists performing and basically celebrating women. At that function, I did address the women and men and audience present. And the theme for International Women's Day this year was for all women and girls, rights, equality, and empowerment. In looking at what happened during the day, we also recognize what we call 4 of our first women. One of them was Dame Paulette Lucia, who happened to be the first female governor in St. Lucia, and we extended to the OECS. We had Julian Alfred, the first female to win a gold medal at the Olympics, and she is actually blazing the trail for us in St. Lucia. We had Cressida Peleus, the first female commissioner of police. And then we had Lady Spice, the first female Calypso monarch. So we celebrated them, we spoke about their achievement. There are many other first women in a number of fields, but we identified these 4, and we celebrated them for International Women's Day 2025. In our reflection, we spoke on what we call Beijing Platform for Action. And this is where the United Nations had its 4th World Conference on Women in Beijing, China. And I was part of the St. Lucia delegation 30 years ago, where we went to Beijing, China. And it was after this World Conference, the agenda was set to promote gender equality all over the world. And St. Lucia can speak very highly of a number of areas where we have seen women excel. People are talking about equal pay for equal wages, whether you are a man or woman. And to a very large extent in St. Lucia, there is very little discrimination between women and men when it comes to pay. However, we find that some of the most attractive and well-paid jobs are usually dominated by male, but that does not mean they are discriminating against women in exploring employment in these areas. You know, a lot of the heavy money goes into construction, and women have stayed in the traditional roles in management and child caring and caregiving. These are the low-paying jobs. We also saw women assuming very high positions in terms of permanent secretaries. The majority of permanent secretaries in St. Lucia in government are women. We have deputy permanent secretaries. Many of them are women, and these are high policy decision making. And people always believe that policy decision has to do with politics, that if you are not a politician, you are not in high decision making. But the permanent secretaries are the ones that implement a lot of the decisions of the politicians, and therefore they are very powerful in their positions. And in our political arena, you would have seen that women are very limited in that area. Right now, we have only 2 women who are elected to a parliament of 17 parliamentarians. So we are well marginalized in terms of our numbers. However, through the good and kind-heartedness of the Prime Minister, and to some extent the opposition has at least 1 woman in the Senate, but we have the majority of women in the Senate now. And we also have the president of the Senate, a woman. So these are significant achievements that we need to celebrate. And we are hoping that more women come forward to participate in the political arena. I did mention in my presentation that women tend to have a fear of politics. And it's because they have not been trained, or they were trained to be fearful of it, and make them believe that this is not for them, that's for men, and therefore the quality of politics, if you have pride in yourself, people will degrade you, and that's not for you. And therefore women tend to be a little timid, and they stay away from the political arena. But I can share my own experience in being in politics, that I think the issue of fear that women have is a myth. If they are interested in representing at the highest decision-making level, they just have to prepare themselves and then take the plunge and see what they can do. And they will be surprised to see how women and men will embrace them as leaders. So I want to encourage women to aspire for the highest levels in the country, to take decisions that will impact women, men, boys, and girls. So it is not a matter of because you're a woman, you only represent women's interests, or because you're a man, you represent men's interests. I also articulated that I am very pleased that the Cabinet of Ministers are very supportive of issues concerning women. And on 2 occasions, I have had discussions in Cabinet to look at allocations for improvement of the gender department. And when we are discussing the budget, the Prime Minister has to allocate funds for office space, for staff, and to strengthen the department. And his response would be, give the women what they want. He's not challenging that. And I am very flattered, very heartened by his response. And as a result, we have seen that government has put in place what we call free medical support for pregnant mothers, so that they can do their ultrasounds and other areas they need, especially at the prenatal level. And we also have the removal of VAT on sanitary napkins. And that is unique to women. And a lot of the young girls, there are some young girls who do not go to school because they cannot afford to buy sanitary napkins. And some people may not even know that. Because you can afford it, you feel it's okay. But when government realized the kind of markup that some of the business places had on sanitary napkins, it was alarming. And therefore they removed that. And they had to put a limited markup on the purchase of sanitary napkins. They realized that the profit margin on sanitary napkins was 139%. And therefore government had to reduce it to something like 30-odd% to ensure that sanitary napkins are more affordable for women and girls. So these are very positive signs that the government has taken. And as we move forward, we will be looking at a lot of the incentives that government give, that we need to do disaggregated data. The disaggregated data will tell you if government gives increase in pension, how many women are pensioners and how many are men. And if we have more women that are pensioners, then therefore it means more women benefit. So all where government put incentives, we will have to break down the statistics to see where women fail in, where are they falling in this kind of support that we give. But when government gives support to education, parents are the ones who nurture the children. A lot of them are single mothers, and therefore they have to take care of the children. So when government put in fees for reduction or removal of facilities fee, payment of CXC fees, all these are support that goes to women, especially the single mothers who have to send their children to school. They have to bear that cost. If government comes to assist them, then that is a big savings for them. So we can break it down and see how this government has played a tremendous role in advancing women in St. Lucia.
I have a question about safe houses or women support centers for women. There has been a lot of discussion surrounding that, particularly like women who have been abused. Do we have any established ones here, and what is that program like?
Okay, now it is an issue I recall addressing sometime earlier. We do have a women's support center, and what we discovered is that the women's support center, they were not sure of its designation. Is it a government entity or is it a private entity? And when we do the background research, we actually did a review of the existing Women's Support Center. Now, from the time the Women's Support Center was established, it has been a no-go zone for the public. We do not advertise where that Women's Support Center is, because if it has to be a safe place for women, it cannot be a public knowledge. Because if a woman is abused by her partner and the partner knows where that woman is taking shelter, then the tendency to go out there and attack the woman is very likely. So you cannot disclose where that center is. So what we have done is that we noticed that government is giving a subvention to that center to the tune of over $400,000 annually to allow it to run. And they are in a building. The building belongs to government. So they operate, they have a staff, and they operate in that center. And what we did is that when we noticed the center supposed to have a board to oversee its operation, and we discovered that the board has not been functioning. In the review, the report came out and it indicated that the board has not been functioning. So the center was almost operating on its own with some support from the Department of Gender Affairs. So right now, we are actually taking that report to determine the status of the Women's Support Center. But right now, they're actually doing virtual counseling, giving support to women. And in the center, they actually bring the children in. They stay in until it is proper for them to, or they feel safe to go back either into their homes or to another place to live. But that has been what we have been doing. We also have the crisis center. And the crisis center, actually, they don't have persons coming to live in, but they actually give them guidance. They give them counseling and support on how to address any issue of domestic violence. Mm-hmm.
I also have a question about jazz in your community. Jazz is around the corner. Will there be Babonno Jazz this year? And what are the plans surrounding it?
Okay, definitely we will be having Babonno Jazz this year. We are also looking at Rainforest, which is a brand, and we want to entertain the St. Lucians. We are actually trying to get our leading artists so that we can market our Babonno Jazz, Rainforest Jazz. Yes.
Question back to the Women's Support Center. What you say now is the woman, if she needs a space to think or to stay for the moment, she cannot go to the support center at this moment?
The women's support at this time requires some renovation, so they are doing some work on it. But what they can do is to just give them the guidance, the support, and they might find an alternative place for them to keep them safe, but not in the building that is designated for them to, because they used to come with their family, and they have several rooms and facilities for them to stay in while they are there until it is safe for them to go back either to their homes or to a different environment.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Going back to what you spoke about, closing the gender gaps in the workforce, as you mentioned, not many women are drawn to certain areas like construction. have we done studies to find out why is it that women are not interested in the construction sector?
Well, you see, at the end of the day, when you look at our education system, it is more academic bent. We are looking at certification in more academic and technical areas, but not in the hands-on. And for that matter, government has established 4 TVET centers. So both boys and girls can go and do the skills development. So the intention is to encourage both boys and girls to engage in those traditionally male-dominated areas of employment. And the whole repositioning and removing the stereotype in the way we look at the work environment, it has to start from the school. And the way we socialize children is that we tell them these are for boys and these are for girls. But now with gender equality, we realize that both boys and girls can perform equally in a number of areas. And therefore, we need to start removing the barriers in terms of stereotype. So we are hoping that TVET and other areas of employment can begin to look at women as playing an equally important role in the construction area. And now with technology and sophisticated equipment, is no longer about whether the man is stronger than the woman. You can have all kinds of equipment that could lift up the weight and do all the work, and the woman could be there just to supervise and make sure the work is done properly.
Two more questions.
What is the outcome of the ruling on the First National Bank legal situation?
I'm waiting for feedback from them. But I did have a ruling. I gave the First National Bank and the National Workers Union my judgment on the matter. I have received correspondence from the First National Bank that they will be meeting their members and they will communicate to me what the decisions are. The National Workers Union versus the First National Bank. And the issue was about paying for excess work. The First National Bank purchased RBC in St. Lucia and St. Vincent, and the employees claimed that they were given additional responsibilities which they should be compensated for. So that matter was brought to my attention as the mediator, and we had several meetings between the two parties, and I gave a ruling. And First National Bank has informed me that they are meeting their members to let me know whether they have accepted the ruling or whether they do not accept the ruling, and then they move to the next level, which is the Labour Tribunal.
Has the National Workers Union accepted your ruling? And what is that ruling, if you could share?
I would prefer them to say what the ruling is.
So that's what I'm asking.
Did they go public with it?
Is it public knowledge?
No, if they go public with it, then it's public knowledge because I gave them the ruling. So I need.
You cannot share this ruling of national importance?
No, I want to hear their reaction because they did not give me a reaction. I read out the ruling to them and I gave each of them their copy. So they are going back to their jurisdiction to discuss it and say, okay, do we accept or we reject it? On what basis we reject it, and what are we going to do about it? So I don't want to preempt what they might say and, to create some kind of stir around the issue. I would prefer them to speak to it. Okay?
Minister, there is a growing concern about waste management in your constituency raised by a family who feels that they have reached out to yourself and to the constituency council, but they're not getting a response. They feel like they're being moved from pillar to post and the issue is getting worse with rodents, etc. coming into their homes as a result of that. What are your thoughts or comments on whether something like this will get addressed in the near future, given they're saying that we've been waiting for a little over a year now for the result?
Okay, well, that has not been drawn to my attention as parliamentary rep, but I can explore with the council to find out what exactly that issue is and what can be done to address it. Keeping the community clean has been one of my mantra, and I have embarked on. Right now, we are moving to 7 communities in terms of what we call the Community Transformation Project. And the first level in the Community Transformation Project is to remove solid and bulky waste. And we have started in the Gara area. We have done Paybush area, we have done Lage and Foaso. Now we are moving into Talvan, Bogis, and the Cabbage community. So when we finish the bulky waste, then we do all the infrastructural work. We do housing repair, we put internet, we try to create employment for the people. It's like we're transforming the community. So we start with the bulky waste. So I'm very concerned about the cleanliness of the environment and disposal of solid waste. So I will look into that matter to ensure that we address that. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just questions from me. Thank you. Good to see you, Minister. Last you were here, you indicated, but when you spoke of the Women's Support Shelter, you did indicate that you were not aware of some of the circumstances of what was happening with Alana Bernard, as well as Ms. Jodie Williams, with respect to whom they had reached out to with requiring protection or shelter. Are you now in a position, 1 week later or 2 weeks later, for you to update us on whether they did try to access services within the system? And my other question has to do with the Domestic Violence Act. Again, when you were here, you indicated that while the act is there for use, regulations for using the act or to guide those who are using the act are yet to be drafted, implemented. Can you give us an indication as to when those regulations are going to be put in place? Because it would seem like while yes, people have the act, but if the regulations are absent, perhaps creating that sort of, how would I put it? Maybe those, they're not guided accordingly as to how to use the act.
Okay. Okay, let me go back to the murder of the two young women. I did indicate that the matter was under police investigation. And maybe for your own benefit, I was out of state because I had to attend to my brother's funeral last week. So I was not on island. However, when a matter is under investigation, we do not speak to it because it can compromise the investigation. So I will not want to tell you, yes, the police said that and whatever.
No, I'm not asking about the police.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm asking about whether it be through, because you indicated that virtually people can still make contact with the shelter, but also as well whether it be through the family court, whether it be through the department itself. Have you found out whether either one of the young ladies sought the assistance of the departments that you are responsible for under gender affairs?
Okay, now the department is not the one that respond to these kind of issues. I said there is the crisis center and there is the women's support center. So the Department of Gender do not handle those kind of issues. What they would do, if people by chance happen to call them, they will direct them on where the support is. And I did indicate that I was out for last week. So for your interest and your curiosity, I can always find out and let you know what the situation is. Okay?
For the public's curiosity.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah. I mean, you're representing the public.
Yes, and with regard to the regulations.
Okay, now with regards to the regulations, we had some support from the French government. And what they did, they wanted us to do some consultancy to look at the operations of the Act, the Domestic Violence Act. And we are still in the process of looking at that. However, while we are trying to deal with the regulation, which is a very comprehensive document, we have embarked on training for the police officers and magistrates in terms of interpreting the law and arriving at common grounds. So that we have made some strides in this area. But the regulation itself is a very comprehensive, complex document that we have to prepare. And therefore, we are in the process of working on that. But we got some support from the French to finance a consultancy to look into establishing the regulation for the Domestic Violence Act.
So the absence of the regulation, Minister, to your mind, does it present any hurdles, bottlenecks, in terms of how the Act itself is utilized by those who are the sort of gatekeepers for the system?
Well, not to our knowledge, because we have done training for the parties that are confronted by incidents of domestic violence on a regular basis. We have done that stopgap kind of interim measure. But you could also note that we have the Labor Act. And the Labor Act does not even have a regulation up to this point. And right now we are actually getting a consultancy to put regulations for the Labor Act, and we are also reviewing the Labor Act, because employers and unions, they have different ways of interpreting different clauses in the Act, and therefore the regulation is what will guide so that you do not have a misconception of what the Act states. In cases where there is a misconception, we seek advice from the Attorney General for guidance on what is the proper measure and how best to implement certain sections of whether it is the Domestic Violence Act or the Labor Act or any other legislation we have.
Yes, Minister. Saturday was Women's International Day. I know there were activities all over.
Yeah.
He wasn't there, he has a question as
I attended an event all in Chosen, young, under 14 girls. I just wanted to know now how satisfied, how pleased are you with the momentum that the event is taking, and with the new initiatives, the other initiatives that you plan to implement going forward?
Yes, I spoke to this earlier, and I said now the International Women's Day is not even becoming a day's event, it's becoming a movement. And therefore, we just have one day to highlight, but throughout, we make every day Women's Day. And the women need to take their rightful place in the society. And therefore, we have to do away with the stereotype. We have to empower women so that they can make a meaningful contribution to national development. I made reference to the fact that a few years ago, they had the theme, Women Hold Half of the Sky. It means that the other half belongs to men. And if women do not do what they have to do in their space, nobody will do it for them. So there is no competition that women are taking over and women are going to deny men of the opportunities. It's just that we have not been prepared to take our rightful place in society. And therefore, that is why we have to take care of the half of the sky that we hold on to, or else it will collapse. So that is what we are doing to empower women, give them all the knowledge, skills, and abilities so that they can make their contributions side by side with men.
I just have a follow-up question to
the final, Lisa, final.
My final?
Yes, everybody's final.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
no
Press
problem.
Secretary. So my final, and I'll try to be final. The President or CEO for the Raise Your Voice Sing Lucia has indicated publicly that the Department of Gender Relations or Gender Affairs has done more damage to the women's movement than anything else in St. Lucia. Your thoughts on that, Minister?
Well, people are entitled to an opinion. And when you give an opinion, you must clarify it. So I will not respond to just a blanket statement without something to qualify that statement. So I respect Ms. Catherine Seeley's and her views, and I do not want to challenge what she said because she did not say it in context. If she says it in context, then I can respond to her challenge.
Well, she did indicate that the department is not willing to listen. It does not listen, and it's not really catering to the needs of what today's woman, the challenges of today's woman. So I would follow up by asking, what is the level of engagement that the department does with these civic groups?
Okay, I need to clarify that the Department of Gender, whereas it is named the department, is a very small unit in terms of staffing. And right now we are in the process of restructuring the department to give them more staff persons to deliver some of the services that people are requesting of the department. So to say the department has not delivered or has done more damage is just a blanket statement, and I will just leave it at that. I'm not going to challenge the statement unless it is qualified by some other evidence to substantiate that statement. I was just leaving it as just a wild statement. However, I did explain that the Prime Minister did some cabinet restructuring, and therefore the Department of Gender, together with Labor, has a permanent secretary, which is head of a unit. And with that, they have been engaging in a lot of activities to amplify and publicize the work of the department. And I did mention that we are looking at strengthening the department. Now they have gotten a new office space, so they have a lot more space to operate. We are going to increase the staff. The Prime Minister has given them all the allocations that they requested. And I did mention, I alluded to that earlier, that when we do request for certain things for Department of Gender, I do not face a challenge from the Prime Minister. He actually say, give the women what they want, and he actually allow them to get what they request in the budget. So what I have been advocating for is, because the Department of Gender is a very small unit in terms of staffing, that the department need to work a lot harder to bring in civil society organizations and NGOs to support and implement a lot of its programs. This is one department that is actually self-financed in terms of the department gets quite a bit of grants from other organizations and countries, to the tune of over $4 million come into training programs. We partner with the Taiwanese, with the Canadians, with the French, with the UN Women, and the European Union. A lot of organizations do give St. Lucia finance, and that is not coming from taxpayers. These are contributions coming from regional and international organizations to advance women, to advance gender equality in St. Lucia, and we are very grateful for that.
Is this in addition to the one that was developed specifically for the police, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force? This sexual policy? Is it
The sexual harassment,
policy?
that was financed by the Canadians. Yes, that is one of the programs the gender department has been implementing, and it has several components, and one of them was to train the police officers.
But is that, because remember there was a policy that had to be developed for the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. One was created for the force. I'm asking, is it this new policy for all the protective services, is it in addition to what was developed for the police, or does it encompass the police as well? What is it?
The police had already developed their own sexual harassment policies, but that program we have the Build Back Equal projects. The Canadians have given us funding, and what they did, they brought in the facilitator. A Canadian came down to facilitate the session. I actually went there to hand over certificates to the police officers and those in the protective services. And there they had a few days training on how to handle the issue of sexual harassment and other areas of concern in the protective services. So that is a separate program we have for this. Okay?
Thank you and good night.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. Right.
What I can say, in the last 3.5 years, the Grosley Constituency Council, they've been working assiduously with the organizations, the various organizations that we need to get approval for the establishment of T-Village. Obviously, first and foremost, the land did not belong to the government of St. Lucia. Construction commenced on that property, and we did not have the permission to actually construct on that property. And so first and foremost, we had to go through the process of acquiring the land at Tivolash, and then we had to meet other approvals, including DCA planning and other approvals, so that we can then get to the next step of getting water and electricity. And so when people indicate that under the previous administration, Tivolash was opened up, no approval was granted, and everything was done, for lack of a better way to describe it, in an illegal fashion. So as a new parliamentary rep, I sought to partner with the Gros Islet Constituency Council to get the ball rolling on moving this thing in the right direction. I can say to this press briefing and to the rest of St. Lucia that we have received the requisite acquisition of the land. It's now officially in the Crown, and we have been in contact with WASCO, Lucia, and of course having to go through all the different, I should say, we know government processes sometimes take a little bit longer to get the final approval for the electricity and water to have a safe environment at that location. So I just wanted to make that absolutely clear. Could it have been done faster? I really wish. And of course, in conversation with the Constituency Council, they've been saying that they've been making calls and having meetings with the various stakeholders to ensure this thing is expedited, and they've been on it for day one. I've been at many of those meetings. Secondly, there was conversation about Deramo farmers and an indication that the farmers in the Deramo community were not given the requisite attention. I will say that, and I would ask the press to do their due diligence to find out who the extension officer is for Gros Islet, for the Gros Islet constituency, the individual whom the very same farmers have indicated to me as parliamentary rep that they've been trying to get in contact with, so that some of their issues could be dealt with. I will say, as a parliamentary rep, through my CDP, under my social programs, I have been giving significant attention and financial support to the farmers in that constituency. We don't have a lot of farmers in the constituency, but we do have a fair amount of cattle farmers, and they've, from time to time, asked for water tanks. They've asked for some financial support to get their feed for their poultry and that sort of thing, and I have provided as much support. It feels like sabotage, considering who the extension officer is for Gros Islet, and of course who is making the statement that the farmers do need some attention, considering, and I'd ask the press to find out who has been that person, and for the last 12 months especially, what that person has been doing as it pertains to providing some level of attention to the farmers in the constituency of Gros Islet. And so I leave that up to the press to see exactly what's happening. I don't play politics when it comes to farming. This is our livelihood that we are speaking about. But the fact of the matter is there are some issues at play here that I think needs to be properly investigated and highlighted for the rest of Gros Islet and St. Lucia to see.
Do you know who the extension officer is? Would you be able to share with us? We don't have this happening. Go deeper.
Okay. The extension officer for Gros Islet, the agricultural extension officer, is Cheshire Andrew.
I have a question about the CONCACAF Congress.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of this event, in terms of the development of our sports tourism project, how does that align with it? And take me into what exactly this means rather for St. Lucia.
It means a lot for St. Lucia. First and foremost, for an island as small as St. Lucia to be in a position and have the wherewithal to host a CONCACAF Congress, it speaks volumes about our social and economic position in the region. It means that we have all the dynamics that a global entity like CONCACAF requires to host all the delegates from these 250 countries. It means that we have the hotel stock and room. It means that we have the conference space. It means that we have the logistics on ground. It means that we are in a fundamental economic position to host them successfully as a ministry and as a Ministry of Economic Development. And it means that St. Lucia is putting the rest of the world on notice that when it comes to sports development, the rest of the world could look to St. Lucia to host significant events such as this. As I said, as a small island, when you look at who else could have been potentially pegged to host this, you're looking at the US, we're looking at Mexico, we're looking at Nicaragua, we're looking at so many other countries, Trinidad, Jamaica. For St. Lucia to be in that position, it speaks volumes about how we're regarded when it comes to sports development in the region and, of course, the rest of the world. It also means that our football programming is one that FIFA and CONCACAF are looking at very closely. We do have a cradle-to-the-grave program as it pertains to football development in St. Lucia, one that was not established previously. We do have a pyramid structure where at the bottom and the base of the pyramid is participation, schools competition, it's participation in communities, and you'd see grassroots football in most of the communities being developed. And as you go higher up in terms of the pyramid, we have a high-performance component where we have the likes of Earl Bollogshaw and Stuart Charles Favre, bringing in 40 of the best under-15 footballers into a program where they taught how to eat, how to be professional from the under-14 stage. So it means that when you have a comprehensive outlook of how you develop football from the bottom up, that is something that we get calls on from other islands on how they could implement this. In addition to that, you have that happening at the senior level where we have a semi-professional league that is established right now. So persons can now look forward to making some form of compensation from football. And from very early, they are taught that if they do what they need to do, that there is some scope of development and assisting your family in the sport of football. So I think based on all what we've done as a ministry, we should be very proud that we have hosted this event, and we are actually showing now that we have the logistics ready to host any event when it comes to football and sports in this very island.
Will there be any preliminary discussions about the, guest development of the semi-pro league during that congress? Absolutely.
We will profit the opportunity to see what else we could bring in terms of the dynamics of our semi-pro league. One of the biggest issues we had in terms of our semi-pro league is refereeing, and it's a teething issue that we have to face in St. Lucia. Some of it is cultural, because I played football and I've seen how referees are treated in this island, and refereeing is not something that I would advise my friend to necessarily get involved in, simply because of how they're treated, the words that I use during the match when a mistake is made. And so we have an issue with refereeing on island. Considering the amount of football we have no choice as a ministry but to look outward in terms of bringing in some referees from the other islands to referee some of our semi-professional matches and our club championships. And so we will be having the engagements with as many of the other countries as possible to see how we can partner and make sure that this particular issue is dealt with. And of course, the issue of gear, what else we can actually get from the more developed countries. Of course, Lyndon Cooper will have his strategies, and we as a ministry will try to see what we could bring in.
Finally, for me, on the spot, same spot, over the weekend or sometime last week, Vino Bartlett was starting as a goalkeeper in a big fixture against Inter Miami. What does that say about how far St. Lucian footballers can reach in terms of the international league?
Absolutely. Vino Bartlett has been one of the best goalkeepers we've seen in St. Lucia for a while. He's still very, very young. We remember not too long ago he brought home a Commonwealth gold in beach football. So he is a name that has been out there playing semi-professional football in Jamaica. And I wasn't surprised that he was able to achieve that. A young boy from the community of Beachfront who has been training for a number of years for a moment like this. I felt proud, and I think it sets an example for what the rest of St. Lucia, the younger ones coming up through our system, can aspire to. We've not really had an example of that, especially as it pertains to goalkeeping in St. Lucia for a while now. And so this only augurs well to the development program that we have ongoing, the strategic program that we have to actually show our young people in that program with Coach Ballhog and Coach Stuart Charles what they can achieve if they decide to be professionals from a very early age.
Back to the extension officer, you mentioned that farmers have complained to you that they did not see him. Have you had conversations with the agriculture minister regarding this public officer supposedly missing in action?
Of course, you have to tread very, very carefully. In my position, I think we know some of what was discussed as it pertains to this young man over the last year. I'm very surprised that an individual from the very same circle in terms of a party, because we know that the two were, they expressed interest on some level, whether it is overtly or covertly, running against me in the constituency of Grosley. And so for the individual that has been handpicked to write and indicate that the farmers were not being given attention, as much attention as they needed, and which pretty much directly implicated her, I should say at that time, competitor. It speaks volumes about what's happening, I guess, with the opposition and what actually obtains. Because when I saw the post, I felt like I considered whether or not this was sabotage, considering what position the individual held. And the individual did have, as an extension officer, the dynamics to actually do better and help out as much as possible, whatever those farmers' situations were. But for some reason, it was not happening. And then you see the post. And so I leave anybody to deduce what they need to deduce from that, and to see at the end of the day what can be done. But I don't believe in finger pointing. I have since spoken to a number of my colleagues about how it is that we can actually provide some more, because under my CDP social, there's only so much I can do, but it is something that we're looking into, and we will definitely try our best to address it beyond whoever the individuals are at play.
But you haven't had any conversations with the agriculture minister about this extension officer?
No, not about the extension officer.
Yes,
I've not had conversation about the extension officer,
yeah,
but I've had conversation about the farmers. And my focus is more on the farmers from that community. Let's just face it, I've been in the community of Deremo for almost the last 2 months. We've had domino competitions, we've had different interactions there, and some of what they've asked me to do in terms of the individual attention that they're seeking, I have provided that support. I mean, I would not mention names of the farmers that have received support from me, and it's just a matter of getting more support. And in every sector, whether it is tourism, whether it is sport, whether it is agriculture, there are areas that I need to always go back to my cabinet colleagues and say, I need more. And that's just one of them.
I wanted to get your thoughts on some comments made by your fellow cabinet colleague, Sean Edward, the Minister for Education. And he made a statement yesterday on the political platform. Any young man or any young woman who joins forces with Alashasne, you are an enemy of progress in this country. I wanted to get your thoughts as the youth minister. Does this statement, I mean, it's interesting. It seems to class young people for their political allegiance as the enemy of the state. Do you endorse the statement made by your fellow colleague?
I will tell you this. I believe personally that first and foremost the question should be asked, of course, to the minister. But for me, I believe that anybody has the option of choosing whatever political party that they feel they need to align with. Would I advise a young person to align with the United Workers' Party right now? No. I don't believe that there's a scope for their, especially the political development. I don't see that. And I mean, let's just watch what happened in Grosley. I mean, how many people from Grosley are actually convinced that the individual selected was more popular than the young man who, had more of a track record of community support and development than for all intents and purposes, than the individual. So I would ask a question, and I would compare the two political parties and the two political leaders, and I would tell any young person that if they have political ambitions, if they truly want to contribute in a positive way to this country, that the party to gravitate towards is the St. Lucia Labour Party, and the Prime Minister that they should gravitate towards is Philip J. Pierre. I mean, the record is there. We have a youth economy agency that has never been established before that young people can gravitate towards. The MSME loan grant, a lot of young people are benefiting from it. The semi-professional football league, a lot of young people are benefiting from it. We are about to start the semi-professional cricket league. So in terms of the input and the focus on young people, I would advise any young person to gravitate towards the administration of the St. Lucia Labour Party and Philip J. Pierre right now.
Minister, concerning the projects Grozny. I know we have quite a few projects on stream. Now this may sound like a minor affair, but I'm talking in reference to the waterfront project. You know, I know there was a big ceremony opening and it was supposed to be a grand affair, but there has been complaints. Some people have expressed concerns to me that there was some vandalism, air condition and other equipment.
Yes.
So that's stalling progress. So
Yes.
is there something to replenish it, to refurbish, because it's a nice prime spot that can take an attraction?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, if you go on ground on Wednesday, you would see significant work commenced at the Grozny waterfront. We, of course, due to climate change, we had to go back to the drawing board in terms of wave breakers. We did have some wave breakers along the seashores, but after the last hurricane, we had to get some finances to ensure that we placed more wave breakers. We've finally arrived at the financing for this. And what we are doing now, we've re-engaged the contractor, and the contractor is going to be recommencing work on completing the project. It's supposed to take 8 weeks, and so we're certainly hoping to have the opening ceremony for the Grozny recreational facility by the end of April, May, around that time. Weather permitting, of course.
In terms of the security and the maintenance wing,
The contractor,
prevent such
luckily you enter into contracts that, and you have clauses that protect you as a government. The contractor is supposed to provide security until the project is officially handed over to the Grozny Town Council. So in terms of the vandalism, whereas it's regrettable that it has happened, the contractor was given the mandate to secure the property until it was handed over back to the council, and so that will be his cost in terms of moving forward. Thank you so much. All the best.
My voice is strong, so that means I didn't have a lot to say yesterday. But yeah, good morning. I think I would start by taking questions. And morning, Lisa. You said good morning? I heard you were not answering me. I was wondering. Yeah, so we'll start off taking questions.
Over the next few days, we're supposed to have a Congress in St. Lucia. I asked the sports minister that's the same question. What does it mean for our sports tourism product in St. Lucia?
Well, I think it's important because it gives us a kind of exposure that we need. But even more than sports tourism, it's also meetings and conferences, what you call the MICE sector, where St. Lucia is seen as a destination where you can hold meetings of significance. And we will be pushing, not next year, but soon the year after, very strongly St. Lucia's position as a place for corporate retreats and corporate meetings. Once the Isla Resort developing at Mount Pimad is completed, it will have the largest conference facilities in St. Lucia, state-of-the-art and advanced conference facilities, and it will become the centerpiece for us promoting St. Lucia as a destination. So for sure, we will continue. We see it as important. 2 years ago, we got the award for the best corporate retreat destination in the Caribbean. So definitely, it's important for us.
All right. Speaking about Mount Pimad, I know that, well, reports indicate that some vendors there had some issues at the base there. Have you heard anything about vendors having issues with the developers? And will there be issues going forward with vendors vending in that area?
Well, I mean, there was a lot being posted on Facebook about a particular vendor who had been there for quite a while, and some persons felt the person should not be moved, and different views were expressed. Our position on this is very clear, and I want to take you back a few years. At Pigeon Point, we had a lot of virtual shacks and, makeshift areas. And we replace it with what is at Pigeon Point now. And I think everybody will agree, upgrading the facilities at Pigeon Point on the causeway, on the beachfront, was better for the destination and for the area. Look at VG. Again, we had the same galvanized with tarpaulin as makeshift areas for vending. It was replaced with what's there now. And again, I'm sure everyone will agree. It's a much better arrangement. And likewise, when we complete the beach park at Mount Pimad, I can tell you, it will be a very substantial improvement on what exists right now. And we're not going to cast away anybody. We're not going to dismiss anybody. We will have frank conversations with everybody who vends and operates in the area and ensure that they are not disadvantaged. But we will need to upgrade the facility for public health reasons, especially for just law and order on the beaches. So, we are taking into account all the comments made, the criticisms, the complaints, and we will try to address everybody's situation. But at the end of the day, we want to have a better facility existing, and for patrons and visitors and locals, that they have a more welcoming and appeasing environment in which they can enjoy the beach.
Mr. Minister, we've heard the SNHD complain about the visitor harassment along that usually stretch. And over the weekend we had the SNHD, I think, some other agencies came together to do a cleanup campaign. Are you aware of this, of the situation, of the gravity of the situation, and would you assist in helping to resolve this issue?
Well, yeah. No, we are aware of it, and I have been centrally involved in all what's going on. The private sector, after discussions with us, agreed that they would take the lead and to ensure that certain remedial works are done there in terms of the overgrown shrubs, partly because, as you know, the hotels that were there have been shut down. They are about to be demolished. The harassment is a big issue. We have been speaking to the police. The Rangers unit is being set up. Persons have been identified. They're about to go into training. And we're in constant dialogue with the SLHTA. We have an excellent working relationship with them. And they briefed us on exactly what they were going to do. We supported it. We spoke to the agencies and asked them to collaborate and cooperate. And they've taken the lead on it, and I think they've been doing an excellent job. And we're going to continue to encourage the SLHTA and other private sector interests to step up and play their part. Government cannot always be the only executing agency. There are times that the private sector should step up because it also affects them. And I'm very pleased, and I must say thank you to the SLHTA and to all the private sector interests that have come forth and said, look, we're supporting the initiative and we're going to be part of it. So it is private sector led, but in the background, we are totally in support and providing whatever resources and support that they need. So, and I think it's a model for what can happen in other parts of the country, that the private sector that would have a vested interest in a particular program or activity to step up and say, look, government, we're going to take responsibility for this one, and we're going to push it through and make sure it happens.
Just one more issue. I know it mightn't be your portfolio, because infrastructure, but the bus area next to the JQ Mall, when it rains, it's a source. We've highlighted it, we've spoken about it, the Minister of Infrastructure has looked. But then when you take the stretch of road from to the marina, would the work encompass cleaning up this area, because this area is really
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good point you've raised. I think there's some works going on there right now. The Rodney Bay City Center, the first building, which will be the corporate headquarters for one of the regional banks. Once that is finished, you will see attention being given to that area. We've already signed an agreement with the new resort that will be built on Ridgely Beach for the upgrade and maintenance of the strip from the Cassius Grosley Highway all the way to the end of the Rodney Bay Strip. So we've already signed an MOU with them. The Isla Resorts, which is Mount Pimad, they too will be part of the upgrade of the area. So we've already brought through the two biggest players on that in that area that they will work with government. But of course, we have to wait for construction to almost be complete. There'll be a lot of construction, because if you think about it, 1,500 rooms being built on Pimad. The hotels on the beachfront will be another 1,000 rooms. So you're talking about 2,500 rooms that will be established along that strip. So there'll be a lot of construction, a lot of jobs. But we've already signed an agreement that we will upgrade that area. And like you said, from that point, which is by the mall, where it meets the Castles Highway, all the way to the marina, we will discuss with the developers of the Rodney Bay City Center in terms of how we develop that stretch. So in the long term, I think the entire area will be addressed.
Because we've noticed some vending about this.
Yeah, but I think that's temporary. That's for construction. Usually whenever you see construction, some people move their mobile canteens and whatnot. So I think it's largely that. But there will be a substantial upgrade of the area.
Minister, I'd like to get your thoughts on some words, a statement made by your colleague yesterday on the platform, Mr. Sean Edward. I won't quote him exactly. It says, any young man, any young woman who joins forces with Alan Chasney, you are an enemy of progress in this country. An enemy of progress in this country. Very strong words. Do you endorse this statement?
I think I will put it differently. I am convinced in my mind that Alan Chasney is an enemy of progress in this country. I have no doubts about that in my mind. And I think the history of Alan Chasney in our politics clearly shows that there's a desperation for power. And if it means destroying St. Lucia along the way to get power, he would do it. And I think what my colleague was suggesting is that anybody who associates with that kind of approach to politics, and we're not necessarily saying the UWP, because the UWP has had a history in St. Lucia, a history contributing to national development. Some of us may not agree with their ideological approach and what they establish as priorities, but they have had a history of contributing to the development of this country. We're talking about this particular historical moment that we're in and the actions that have been associated with the leader of the present UWP, I think is inimical to the best interests of St. Lucia. I can never forget the actions as it relates to Wanda Martinez matter, which was a total farce and fraud. And even now, the court case to stop the CIP and the effect that can have on the country. And the fact is, I can say to you as minister, we get so many calls from overseas, people expressing concern about the CIP, about the country, whatnot. I mean, there is a very clear understanding that if you act in a particular manner, you will destroy the reputation of St. Lucia. And therefore, it forces you to be able to straddle that thin line and never really cross it. I remember in opposition when we started to criticize, and I'll give you an example, DSH, and just spare me a few minutes on that. We were very clear, and you could look at every public statement we made on DSH. We said we're not against development. We're not against the developer, but there are conditions in the agreement we think are not in the best of St. Lucia, so renegotiate the DSH agreement. That was our principal position, and it can be fact-checked. It can be fact-checked that we would repeat it, we are not against development. And that was our position. The same with the CIP. We stood up and we criticized, and you can go and read Hansard, you can go and read the interviews, that we are against certain policy changes and decisions. But you would never have heard us internationally try to bring down the program. Why? Because we knew that one day we would be in government and this program would be important to St. Lucia. So whereas we criticize he lowering the price, we criticize he removing the 500 applications, he removing the $3 million net worth of each individual. We criticize that, and we criticize it severely. But we always said that we support the St. Lucia program. We always said we supported the St. Lucia program. And when we thought we could have gone to court likewise, on the range issue. Remember the range issue? Up to these days, St. Lucia, and we in government up to today, still do not know how much St. Lucia paid to settle the range issue because the papers are not really there. You cannot find this, you cannot find that. We never took it to court. Why? Because we knew if we took this to court, the dramatic impact it can have on the country and the responsibility of the then government to have to make sure St. Lucia is not tarnished and scarred in a very, indefinite way. But look now, a totally different approach. Alan Chasney knows what he's doing. He knows when he takes such action, the damage he will do to the country. He knows when he says those things. Why would you as a Prime Minister say that when you win the case, you're going to revoke the citizenship of all the persons who got? Well, the persons who have citizenship now will be calling Should we take him seriously? Do we have to prepare our lawyers now to take St. Lucia to court because we've done nothing wrong? Why would he revoke our citizenship? But he knows what he's doing. He's doing it deliberately. So my colleague's point was that anybody who associates with that is no different to him. You cannot say that, look, I'm a young man, I'm progressive, I'm different to Alan Chassin, I'm different to Guy Joseph, but I want to run with them under their leadership. It doesn't work that way. If I don't believe in the leadership of my prime minister, my leader, I don't associate with it. If I don't believe that what he is doing is right, morally, ideologically, I don't associate with it. Doesn't mean I agree with everything he does. We may have differences on policy, on different things, but I believe intrinsically that he is leading the country in the right way and in the right manner. And if I don't believe that, I step away. So in that case, if a young man decides consciously to associate with it, then you cannot fault anyone for seeing that as an enemy of progress, no?
Then what should happen to, aren't you isolating I guess, those who support the leader? Because I understand that Chassin is the leader of I'm not really saying that it's not necessarily directed at the leader, it's directed at the political leader, but the political leader...
No, my colleague was not talking about supporters. He was not talking about supporters.
Yes, but at the same time saying, when you tell a young person that they cannot follow this person and they're the enemy of the state, what does that not paint this person as this figure that people should isolate? Or these words are very, I think, scary words to be uttered.
Yeah.
That does not concern you? And what then happens to that young person if they do associate themselves with Alan Chassin? What then does the nation and do you say to them? What should happen to them?
But I'm saying it again to you. There are supporters who support their party, they follow their party. That's fine. That's fine. I think the point was being made was in relation to a candidate, a young person wanting to be part of that leadership, wanting to be part of that approach to governance. And that's it. I mean, supporters support their party, they with their party, and that's fine. That's fine. You don't chastise supporters. Well, maybe sometimes you do, but the point is they are supporters. But if you can consciously decide that I want to follow this man who wants to destroy the CIP, I want to follow this man, I want to be with him in destroying the reputation of St. Lucia, come on. What is being said is that person is an enemy of progress. And it's an individual decision you have to make, when you enter politics. What you want to be associated with, what you want to be part of, and that's it. There'll be no accommodation in that space. If you say that Guy Joseph is the best example of a leader of this country, then you face the consequences of such an opinion. My advice would be that anybody, before they decide they want to be associated, to consider the implications of that.
Okay, due to time constraints, I will take a question from Quinn and one from Jerry.
Yeah, but no, you have to let Lisa ask a question. Come on. Lisa must ask a question. Lisa cannot be here. Lisa, you cannot be here. After such a... We've had a long separation. You back here? A very long one. You need to ask your question. Yeah.
I'll be brief.
Yeah.
Lisa, please be brief. I will, I promise. I was cutting off. Okay, Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, all said and done. Budget is coming up.
Yeah.
Let us know what's in it for the tourism.
No, I cannot.
What do you expect?
No, I'm expecting a lot of exciting announcements. I can tell you that. Quite a lot of projects in tourism being implemented, and I cannot wait to present to the House some of the exciting stuff that we're doing, and which will be provided for in the budget, as well as provisions for us to have an even bigger carnival this year, a bigger jazz festival this year. And I'm certainly looking forward to May, June, July, because at least we can put politics aside for a while and just enjoy ourselves. And it's amazing. We still have another year plus to go before elections. So I don't know why. Maybe someone should tell the opposition to just slow down, because you saw what they caused yesterday. Just slow down. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting presentation by the Prime Minister.
I know they indicated that there are no taxes and things, but with tourism and things happening. Are you seeing anything like this?
No new taxes. I mean, again, the leader of the opposition, I mean, will announce that they found out that we're going to be increasing taxes on tourism sector. And why would you do that? But, I mean, there's so many ways you can play politics, you know. You don't have to be crass and crude and deliberately destructive. You can, in a very, serious way, raise credibility issues and question policies without doing that. There'll be no new taxes. I know Lisa doesn't agree with me, but it's all a question of, the finesse that some people possess,
Will you be presenting during the budget?
It's Craig's question. I'm saying
just to add to what he's saying, the jazz figures from last year, what was spent, will we be hearing that during your
in budget presentation, yeah.
And for this year, what's the projected cost?
Yeah, you can get anything you need to know.
All right. I have a question. My question comes as a member of the media. I'm asking the question as a member of the media. Oftentimes, people have come on record and said that the media often does not portray some of the good things that the government does. All right. My question though is concerning accreditation, because this is one of the challenges that we as members of the media struggle with. As the Minister of Communications, sorry. Information, sorry. Is there anything that you are doing to help with that relationship between the press and the government?
The Freedom of Information Act.
Well, I mean, put it that way, we welcome you here every Monday morning. I mean, granted, Melissa doesn't give you sandwiches and biscuits and whatnot, but I mean, put it that way, I'm not aware that there are any inhibitions between yourself and the government. And if any member of the press believes that they're not giving them the space and the opportunity for them to question government and hold ministers accountable, we will address it, because that's just unacceptable. A minister has a right to answer the question in whatever way he wants, but we should not deny you the opportunity for you to seek information. And for me, that's fundamental.
Freedom of Information Bill.
Well,
When?
I can't tell you when, I'll be honest with you. I honestly cannot tell you. Yeah.
Just rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
So, Minister too will adopt the rapid fire.
After Martinez, anything Lisa fire at me, I can take it.
Oh, Minister.
You're one of my favorite people in the media. So.
That has been for a long time.
For a long time. Don't tell us.
I will not tell our.
Yeah.
Just quickly on tourism, you made mention of the hotels that will be along the Rangery Beach there, the Rex Resorts.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, former Rex and yeah.
But they were EP operated. Are they going to be inclusive or remain in the EP?
It will be a blend of both. Yeah, there'll be 3 separate properties. I think one would be all-inclusive and the other 2 a blend of both. Yeah.
And any sort of challenges that you may be seeing now, considering climate change, and the Prime Minister said often climate change is what keeps him up. What are we doing with respect to how the proximity of the resort to the waterfront there, or the shoreline?
Well, ironically for me, the biggest worry for me as Minister of Tourism and Investment is the nation's infrastructure. The infrastructure. Maybe the PM is way ahead of me, but the infrastructure, for example, we're putting in more rooms and we need a dramatic improvement in the capacity of WASCO, its ability to deliver and to meet the needs, both water and sewage. So for me, that's a big issue. And in the north and south, because there'll be a lot happening in the south as well. How do we respond to that? The road network is another big issue for me. The transportation of individuals, as visitors now want more authentic experiences, they want to take the bus. They want to go down to Soufrière on a bus. They want to go to different parts of the island on a bus. And that is something which, concerns me. The safety of individuals is another one, because we have to always ensure that we exist in a time that You know, people can be a bit lawless sometimes. They always have one or two persons who want to step out of bounds and not necessarily treat visitors and locals in a manner we find acceptable and even lawful. So our capacity to manage, you know, those interactions. So these are the things that are always in the fore of my mind. As we increase our numbers, we bring more rooms and more persons come to the country, more experiences are being created, new products are being added. How do we have the supporting infrastructural and enabling, you know, framework to manage it? That's what really worries me. And then how do we get St. Lucians to change their mindset to see opportunities in that growth? Otherwise, the benefits of the growth will not really filter through other communities and to individuals. We must change our mindset. You know, we must see individuals come in, opportunities to earn livelihoods. So how do we change that kind of mindset and that kind of thinking? I think I'm stuck in that phase right now. So I don't even really think too much about climate change, not because it's not important, but I think we have a more pressing set of challenges before us, even before we get to that point.
And so I want to blend yesterday's meeting and tourism, community tourism. The parliamentary representative for Ancillary did criticize his predecessor for having the bed and breakfast. It's almost suggesting that it was not a need for the constituency. Do you subscribe to that? Do you believe that this was a project that really has absolutely no benefit for the people of Ancillary?
Yeah, I don't think you should analyze it in the context of absolutely no benefit. And let me explain to you what has happened. And I want you to take a deep thought. I'm not going to ask you to support my judgment on it, but just think about this. So there it is. You have a government that's about to launch what they call a village tourism project. One of the components of the village tourism project is to make monies available for people to be able to invest and to add new experiences, new products, including persons to have monies to add a room or two and create local accommodation options. And then you get $5 million US from the Taiwanese, which is to start the project. There is no institution in place, there's no legislation in place, there's no policy framework in place. But you spend the $5 million on a few projects. Two of the projects are right there in Ancillary, because he's the Minister of Tourism. One is a bed and breakfast, and one is a restaurant. And you have to ask the question, if you were Minister and Rep for Ancillary, maybe you could have taken some of that money and said to persons in Ancillary, in Otago, in Masque, even in the village, that we're going to make $1 million, $2 million US available to you to get soft loans, to improve on your housing, and maybe be able to accommodate visitors, Airbnb style, home accommodation generally. As against building a building on the waterfront and call it an Airbnb that nobody owns really. We still have to resolve who's going to operate it, who's going to own it. Is it going to be owned by the community tourism agency? Is it going to be owned by the local council? Is it going to be leased to a private person? How is it going to be done? Is that the best way to have used that couple of $1 million to put in one structure right there, as against allowing a number of persons in the community to have access to that financing to add rooms to their properties and accommodate persons? So I give you both options. And you can decide for yourself which one you think would be the best option. I know which one I think that's the best option. I think making the monies available to individuals in the community to improve their housing, to add a couple of rooms and invite visitors to rent from them as an Airbnb or home accommodation is a better approach than putting up this building on the waterfront in Ancillary. So when my colleague says, he doesn't support that, we will accept it, we'll make the best out of it, but it's not the best spend of the money. I think, for me, I will tell you what my position is. I think he's right. But like we've said, we will make the best of it. We will use it, it's there, we will make the best of it. But we are also now, through the CTA, making monies available, and we have about 14 applications from Ancillary for people who want financing to do bed and breakfasts. So that is the background and the context. But I leave it to you to make your own personal judgment of whether that was a wise decision. And I won't go all into the contractual arrangements and why the buildings are not finished yet. Let's put that aside for now.
Just two final questions from me again on yesterday's meeting. Are you satisfied with the outcome this morning, reflecting on the meeting? And are you concerned at all that there may be the perception that what the meeting, the objective of the meeting was to sort of come and almost as if have a rebirth of Wayne Girard?
Well, I'll tell you, no, that's a very good question, very, very good question. Yesterday, and I will tell you, first of all, let me take the opportunity to thank everyone who came and attended the meeting, all the Labour supporters and everybody else who watched it online, whatnot. Yesterday's meeting was beyond our expectations in many ways. We wanted to have a normal, we have what we call, national public meetings, where we go in communities and we have small meetings, public meetings. So largely it is just to show up the local candidate. I will have mine in Castries South, Castries East will have theirs, and we do it, periodically. And, I can tell you my own personal experience. When we started mobilizing for our meeting, the people were like, no, we're ready to come out. We're ready. The flowers are already out. They're making a lot of noise like election is tomorrow. So we're ready to come out. So it was even like, wow, this is supposed to be a small little meeting in a little corner in Ancillary. We didn't plan to put it on the playing field or any big rally. It was not supposed to be a rally. So, but our supporters wanted to come out because they felt that, look, the ULPs are all over the place, demanding elections, saying a lot of things. So they haven't been out for a while, they want to come out. So then we had to clean our shoes yesterday and come out, and to just have some fun. And we had some fun yesterday. You notice, we enjoyed ourselves, our supporters enjoyed themselves. But we still have a long way to go. We still have to present our budget. We must implement our budget. I still have projects I want to start in Castries South. So I'm hoping the Prime Minister does not even take all of that too seriously, and he lets me finish my projects in Castries South, because I promise a few roads. I promise, the Ansfeld lookout. I promise to finish the Mon Lay-by. I promise a community center in Cicero. I haven't finished the field yet. I have a lot I still want to do in my constituency. So, but our supporters are telling the opposition, really, you're out having your meetings. We can have some fun too. So we had some fun yesterday, and I enjoyed myself. Nah, I don't know that there is any rebranding of Wayne Girard. Wayne Girard is a unique politician in many ways. We've tried to explain to him, and I said so yesterday, Wayne, when you do things, you must promote it. You must let people know what you're doing. He doesn't approach his politics that way. Wayne believes if he helps you, that's between you and them. If he does something in a community, that's the community know he's doing it. We tell him that's not really the style of the politics. When you do something, you must show it. Not private, personal things for people, but when you do things. And we thought we should go in and really beef him up and show him that, look, yeah. And we'll be, and let me tell you, he's not the only one. Next month we will do another one, and the month after we'll do another one, and everybody will get their turn. I'm hoping mine comes a little later on in the year. So by then I would have finished a few projects and I can flex my muscles a bit, because I'm too waiting for the candidate who will go up against me. Maybe you know who, you might share it with me.
Maybe me.
Yeah.
Castries Central showed up, Richard Frederick was on platform, spoke.
Yeah.
Are you in a position to enlighten the public as to whether this application to the St. Lucia Labour Party has been accepted and approved?
Whether his application has been accepted and approved? Well, as far as I know, from the last few meetings I've attended, we've not approved applications, I think, since ending of last year or so. But Richard Frederick is an independent Labour candidate. He contested as an independent Labour candidate, also using the same color as we did. Richard Frederick is a part of the Central Labour Party government. He's there as an independent parliamentarian, and he's a critical and important part of the government of St. Lucia and of the parliament. And, he's always welcome to be on our platform. and to, contribute, to the national political discourse and dialogue. As you know, he's an ardent critic of the United Workers' Party, and I will continue to encourage him to be one and to continue to bring in all the misdeeds of the United Workers' Party.
Critical to your electioneering.
Well, I mean, he's not just critical to our electioneering, he's critical to the discourse in St. Lucia on what's happening. I mean, Richard Frederick has an amazing repository of information of what the last government did, and he's unique in his capacity to convey that to the electorate, and he's valuable whether he's with us or not with us. He's valuable for bringing those issues to light, and I certainly enjoy listening to him. He has his own style. It's not my style. Each of us have our own style of doing it, but he's highly effective and he's very powerful in what he does. So I will encourage him to continue to do what he does. And, when the attacks come at him, I'm one who will say to him, that he has the support, because, when I reflect on it, I know what I have been through at the hands of Guy Joseph and Alan Chasney. And, I know. So, let him continue to do his work.
Okay, thank you. We have come to the end of the press conference.
This is really critical.
The next
But
engagement
really
is
critical.
calling. It is not critical.
Yes.
You had
I
a
just want to
question
know about
to
Julian Alfred and her foundation.
Oh, no, let me answer this one.
That's final question.
Yeah, final. Let me answer this one.
Yes, it is a final.
Yeah.
Just give us some updates, give us an insight into what the situation is.
Well, can I start off by saying, first of all, the government has nothing to do with this. And we've not said anything officially before, because, we don't think anything to do with Julian Alfred should be sullied or should be in public, discontent or argument. We're not going to be part of that, and any and everything we can do to support Julian Alfred and any endeavor she wants to do in St. Lucia, we will support her. For her foundation, from what I've learned, for it to be registered, there has to be a process that has to be followed according to law. And the last time I inquired, they had not submitted all the documents for the registration of the foundation, and you cannot open a bank account if you don't have a registered foundation. So once the documents are compiled and prepared and sent in for registration, we will do whatever we can as a government. But the opening of bank accounts and the registration of foundations require a process, and we're not part of the process. So there's no issue. I think somebody wrote, the statement was made expressing frustration with the local process. My appeal to the members of the foundation is that Julian is anxious to get work done in St. Lucia by a foundation, so they should expedite the process of registering the foundation and getting a bank account open. Thank you very much. Yeah.